So this is what I analyzed for the best current pro Omen player in Tier 1, which is Boo from Team Heretics. Found last 60 days off VLR stats post duelist patch. So let's first start with your play space on attack, and unless if you're hard executing onto a site or execution somewhere, then this is always going to be your play space essentially. So there's two scenarios in this. The first variation is if your team's defaulting towards mid or B, then you're essentially playing this A area right here. And the second variation is if your team's like default stacking towards A, then you're just gonna start on tiles area. So your main job in default is to really gather info, see if they're stacking that site, see if they're rotating off, see if they're strong holding or hard pushing onto your side of the map. That's really your main job. There's also two main things you want to do too, and that's breaking enemy utility if it's known to use util to clear spaces at the start of a round. So one example on A that's really common is if they have a gecko, they commonly throw a flash over this ledge right here. And if you know they do that a lot, they want to push a main at the start of a round right here, break that flash, and back up right away, not overstaying your welcome. Another example on Sunset is if you're starting tile side, you want to try to break that market door if they commonly close that, and also try to destroy any recon type of utility if they do a recon dart, for example. Now your last job is to try to catch enemy lurkers and also to take small fights on people trying to gather info or flank. One common example on Sunset is sometimes defenders here push up a main for info and also to try to break the cipher trip then back off. You want to try to catch the timing on that, and also try to catch the timing on lurkers trying to flank on towards your side of the map and try to take that surprise fight on them. So when doing this type of slow play, you want to be smoking around the map occasionally, and your main job with these smokes is to deter enemies from peeking angles and make them really worry that you pushed up towards a certain section of the map, or maybe you lurked up and passed a part of the map they're not watching on. So other than the very starting smoke, which you likely have a pre-plan for, the mid-round type of smokes you should be putting out by yourself without anyone telling you when to put it at. And these are really just to support your team and to again threaten lurk ups and try to control sections on the map and threaten stuff. You should be putting them by yourself. When doing these type of smokes, it's okay if you mess up or do a smoke that doesn't really do anything, because again, it's slow play, so you just really want to put something down. You also want to be cycling through your smokes, so you don't want to put them both down at the same time. So you want to only have one smoke in play. Usually don't want to refresh a smoke right away too, or put down another smoke right after the first smoke disappears, because you're trying to cycle through, and you want to have preferably both smokes for when you actually execute onto a site. And speaking of that, like once it gets into the later in the round, you do want to start saving onto your smokes for the actual contesting. But when you do refresh a smoke right away in this type of slow play, it's because you're like refreshing a contesting type of smoke. So example case would be like somewhere mid right here. You like refresh that or maybe refresh that smoke. That's an example one. There's two type of variation smokes you do. So the first one is a contesting smoke, and the second one's a pure threat smoke, or a fake slash smoke. And these smokes are kind of weird, but they do the job. And whenever you do these smokes, you don't actually push with that smoke, it's just a threat smoke. So we'll be going over threat smokes first. They're pretty simple. And the B ones are only done when you're trying to fake site, while the A ones are done just threaten a walk up, but you're not actually walking up with it. This one is the more common smoke he does when he tries to threaten the A walk up. This way, it threatens that you can still take the fight over here, and you can take that fight if it's very necessary. Like maybe they're hard executing onto B, so you fast rotate towards A, try to lurk up there. You can still take that fight. But it also completely blocks off this angle. And this guy, if he walks into smoke too, he has to be really worried about you somehow walking into the smoke from one of the many angles you can do it from. I think they only did this smoke once. It's pretty common in ranked, but Team Heretics, I'm pretty sure they only did this once. So just off further smoke, but this smoke really does the same job. But it's a little bit more dangerous, I think, which is why they didn't do it. And the reason for that is a flasher could get into that smoke and do a pop flash out of the smoke and swing with that. But what this smoke also does, it breaks up the crossfire a lot. And the defenders, if they choose to push out, they gotta worry about a lot of people like being in these spots. While this one, if you walk out from there, it's a lot more simpler to clear. So this smoke is a less common one right here. This one is done when you note that their team kind of likes playing on the right side, specifically their Cypher, because Cypher is very meta on this map, and they either play this left-sided pillar a lot or the right side. If you note they like going right a lot, they want to smoke that off to try to kind of break the trip and fake sight a little bit, but not really. So these two smokes kind of do the same job. They're done when you're trying to hard fake B with execute util and maybe have your entry kind of go on, maybe even tap the bomb and back out. And when this type of play is done, they always do these two smokes. This one's a bit more believable, but this one's more commonly done because it's safer and it also blocks off everything. But it might make them doubt about the side fake, you know? So moving on to more actual default type of smokes. These smokes are done when you're actually trying to take space at the start of a round or mid round. And these are the 5 smokes they do. The B main and the market one are the most uncommon smokes in this type of default. The most common ones are the mid and A main one way. The A main one way lets you take elbow a lot safer. And this is what Team Heretics did a lot to break up this crossfire and to take A main space safer. The B main smoke's a bit more uncommon, but it's more common than the market smoke. The market one's not really used that much. And the B main smoke is used when you want guaranteed space of B main and you're not really contesting towards site. If you are contesting towards site, then you want to kind of opt for one of those earlier smokes I showed earlier, where you're kind of faking pressure but you're not actually pushing onto site. The smoke should be especially done if you know they're trying to fight for B main a lot or kind of contest it heavy. That smoke should be done. Usually at the end of taking B main, your Cypher usually puts a trip here. Now this market smoke is done when you notice they're never closing market door and they try to take fights from market a lot. And this smoke is also done when you want to threaten and do like a contact type of push towards mid and try to take a fight over there. That's when the market smoke's done. The reason, if you're just gonna smoke mid though, because you don't really know what to smoke, then just smoke mid top, as it's better to try to take that market fight, unless if you're trying to do something active towards mid top. This market smoke too, you want to smoke it as shown. It threatens multiple walk-ups that you could go this way or that way. And they gotta peek really deep if they want to close that door or gain info, which you could usually kill them from if they're stupid enough to do that. Now the mid smokes are pretty common too. You want to do one of two smokes. For this mid smoke too, you want to make sure there's a little thingy on the left there you could kind of walk in towards and peek out. But that smoke you never actually push out with. And this smoke is done when you want control of market space or guarantee control of mid at the start of a round. Now this mid right smoke is a smoke you do if you're just kind of pure defaulting or want to even push into this pretty heavy, or just kind of take a small fight right here and back up. That's when this smoke is used. Smoke is also very useful for taking a fight from mid bottom at the start of the round and tiles because it isolates the left side. It's a very good smoke too to block off the right player, especially if you know their mid player tends to play this right side a lot. It's a very good smoke because now this whole left section is very threatened and the defenders towards B gotta really worry about that. The smoke should be again done as shown, and you could kind of walk into multiple angles because of how the smoke is. But you don't really actually push past that smoke, you're just gonna go left if you do that type of smoke. So two things you could also try when doing this type of slow play is TP. And this right one's somewhere useful. When you TP on top of here, so as the round starts, they might get a little sus, but they usually forget about it soon afterwards. And you could get a really good off angle on anyone that tries to push down A main. And the second one is a TP across mid over here, and this one's done when mid top's not smoked off. You could have like an off angle to peek players from. But I don't think that one's that useful, it's really risky to do so. Now to move on to the actual side type of executions. So we'll start off with A side, as there's less stuff on the board to go over. But sometimes you might want to TP here as soon as the round starts if you want to be really rushy towards elbow. If you're really worried about the left too, you could pair this with a Cypher cage if you have a Cypher. That's what Team Heretics did a lot. This is essentially to break up the crossfires towards this left side specifically if they have a player there, but more so to just rush down towards elbow and also to try to catch up to your duelist entry player in this type of rush. So when you're pushing on A, you're almost always rooting towards elbow, especially if you have your blind. The two reasons is it's literally Omen's playground for the blinds right here. I think I forgot to note some blinds, as I remember he did this blind sometimes. And it's also a strong TP spot where you can entry on towards side towards to help your duelist entry. You don't want to TP too early though. The only case you TP very early is if you like a recon site, you know no one's on there. But if not, and if someone is on site, you want to TP like that, they want to time it out with the timing that your team pushes out onto site with. That way they have to shoot one person, and they're more likely to be distracted on you, which means a free kill for your teammates. Now, you also want to blind this occasionally if you're going to do a hard rush towards the left side, and your duelist player is really just going to hard push it out with that Omen blind. Whenever doing this type of Omen blind though, preferably if you have a Cypher especially, want to have the Cypher camp to spot for you. This way you don't waste your Omen blind if no one's there and you can save it onto it for the post plant. And whenever pushing A2, you never want to Omen blind unless if you think someone's on site, because it's more common for the Omen to save their blind for the post plant if they don't think anyone's actually on site. Well, for B, it's the opposite case. We'll go on to this later, but whenever you go B, you never have the blind for the post plant because you're using the blind for the entry, because B is a bit more hard to take. So when smoking A, it's a two-step process, and you always want to use both smokes on A, but you don't put them down both at the same time. So this left smoke always goes down first, and it should be put down as shown. And surprisingly, they never did this one way right here, which is surprising, I found. But just copy the smokes, they're pros, you know. And the second smoke, they do it back here, and this should be done when your players are ready to push, essentially, like they're around here on elbow. That's when you put down your smoke. And there's two variations you could do. You could either do the one way, or you could do this back sight, like the full smoke, you know. You especially want to use this smoke if you know their team is going to smoke you off towards elbow. Then you definitely want to use this smoke instead of the one way, because the one way only gets value if they do not smoke elbow on their team. So if they ever smoke you off elbow, then just default to the other smoke. And when doing the one way too, you really want to clear out this space right here to see if anyone's stuck behind that. The smoke's only done when your whole team pushes elbow and you have no one towards this side. And you really want to get the bomb down because maybe you're like low on time. So that's when you do this type of smoke when no one's on this left side. And also, because you're doing this type of default a lot when you're going slow, this smoke is also done a lot when you're trying to push towards elbow. That means you might only have one smoke for the actual site execution, unless if you wait around an elbow for a little bit. And in that case too, you want to only smoke CT. So when pushing mid top, there's two smokes you do. More commonly push towards mid B, because that's a easier push to accomplish. And you do the same smoke that was shown earlier, but for this A type of crunch, then you're gonna smoke a left here. It should kind of stick out a little bit as shown. That's how they smoke that off. And sometimes if you have your ult, this was a pretty common play Heretics did when they had Omen ult on attack. They Omen ult back here in this back right corner, and our Neon's essentially running mid top with some of her teammates, and you're trying to crunch towards a certain section. It's a pretty dangerous area to ult that, especially because you're so close to where the defenders will be rotating towards, so they likely hear you. And make sure to use your blind to take a fight as soon as you know someone's like in that general area. Okay, so B is very hectic. But let's try to go over this blinds first. So when you're blinding market for a market type push, like maybe Neon's gonna run down market, then you actually blind from this corner and not inside B main. to do that straight type of blind. They actually do it from this outside corner right here. So there's two ways to blind this. You either blind for this corner right here and this back box and that stairway. You want to try to smoke that off as shown after that. The second blind is if you don't think anyone's towards market and they might have backed off, then you're trying to blind back pillar again, but also these wall sections. And I think the blind also gets to back here a little bit. It doesn't show on Valorant because it doesn't extend as much. That's where the blinds go. If he pushed from market 2, this is a blind they did before. They only did it once though, and it didn't get any value, but this is a blind you could do for pushing site if you're inside market. Now whenever you push into market 2, you want to do this diagonal type of smoke. Make sure it's not too much to the right though, because then the defenders from CT could actually spot the players in market if it's too much towards the right, because the smoke won't be high enough on that left side. But you do want it to be diagonal, that way it creates a better crossfire for when they walk out. They gotta worry more about the multiple angles the defenders could be at. Now for the actual side blinds, you always want to be blinding, by the way, for the B executes again. You shouldn't have blind for post plant. And this is the two blinds they do. They either blind this whole right section right here, or they blind for back pillar and this right corner section. This makes it so anyone that stepped out of the market smoke is going to have to walk back in and hide. And it also gets controlled. So B site, it's a two-step process again with the smokes. If you're just going from full B and then market, you're always going to be smoking right first over here, usually before you start to execute. So like once you're hanging out around here. And this smoke should be done to where like the edge connects to that pillar. So it threatens that a player could walk into the smoke and walk out into the market. And the second smoke, they more commonly do this bottom smoke. They don't, you have to position it like that for the players above not to see, but they do it like this. I forgot exactly, I think it was like that. So just do that smoke. You gotta be worried about the players hopping up though. Maybe they do that smoke because the other one you have to actually extend it too much and they can walk out with it. I'm not exactly sure. They also sometimes opt for the one-way right here. It should be on this corner on the top. With this smoke too, you gotta be worried about people walking into the smoke because they could walk into here. And you also want to make it float down onto it so that it doesn't go too low. When doing this one-way CT smoke too, you always want to clear this left corner right here, one of your teammates to clear that corner. Now when pushing B, it's actually also kind of common for you to not smoke CT at all. And this is because you're trying to save a smoke for the post plant. So if you don't think it's necessary to smoke CT that round, or you don't plan on hard pushing towards pillar or backside, then you want to try to save onto that smoke. If you know players are backside though, then you always want to do that second smoke and don't hang on to it. And this is the post plant type of setups, which I'll go over right now. So the yellow areas are where you're going to be playing at for the post plant most commonly if you weren't pressured to push a site, like push a side somewhere because you're low on numbers and like a 2v4 or something. Then this is where you're always going to be playing at essentially. And for the ace side, the blue areas where you TP out of if it gets too dangerous and you need to back up for a little bit. That's where you TP towards and try to play from there if you survived. Now, when playing B on the post plant, you're essentially just trying to do what you do on B long Pearl. You're really just spamming the bomb during the post plant and smoking yourself off. The bomb plant should always be going towards here. Sometimes they do plant here when site's really safe, but I noticed they mess up the spam sometimes, so we should just plant here to be safe, honestly. And you might not be the planner at all because you're Omen, but this is where the bomb goes. It's going to be going against the wall to make for easier spam. And when you do plant there, you could actually jump peek over that and see their heads to see if they're on top of bomb. If they're trying to defuse bomb, you know. It doesn't actually show the bomb right here, but you can see their head when you jump over that. And you also want to be smoking like that, make it towards their side of the map, and you're really just pinging bomb and spamming towards the ping and also towards the left side a little bit to get the spammers. And when it's not smoked off, you're really just trying to get them off the bomb meal, like do jump peeks to mess with them and try to win around like that. The reason why this yellow space extends so far to the right is because you don't want to be all playing through this area. You also want someone to be playing anti-flash over here. Or maybe you could be the anti-flash and this guy's the first contact. I think that's the more common play actually. The right guy's first contact and you swing out for when they swing out. And you just want someone to stay alive because they're kind of forced to push you like past the smoke to try to win the round in most cases. And you want some people to stay alive to stall the fight as long as possible to tick down the clock. Whenever you're trying to push deep CT, maybe do like a mid-top B crunch and you not control that space, you always want to do it one way right here. And this is one of the few cases where you don't play B main for the post plant. This one way is honestly a little bit hard to do right here, but it's on the ledge. Once I get it right. It's the lower one, by the way, not the higher one. You could make it float down like that, and this is what the one way looks like. It's a very OP one way for anyone playing towards this section. So A site's the complete opposite of B. You're trying to play post plant on the site itself, and there's two sections you could play on as Omen. You're playing towards the bomb plant, or you're playing towards Gen. The cases you play Gen is because someone's already playing this area, and maybe you had to watch them, like watch the sides to make sure they could plant bombs safe, to make sure no one rushes onto site, you know, if you're low on numbers. If you're high on numbers, more often you're going to be playing towards a bomb planner, and you could also TP up there. So when playing this section, it's like the B main pillar. You could actually jump peek for info over here, and you should crouch jump this. And since you're crouch jump anyways, you should do the silent jump peek, which is you're crouching, jump, and you let go of crouch midair. That's how the silent jump goes. You're really just doing this for quick info. Don't keep spamming it if you already see them though, because they could shoot your head if you keep doing it over and over. You know, do jiggle peeks like that, like the dead zone. Dead zone is when you're peeking super fast, shoot and go left, like the opposite way. You're really just shooting, like you're really just pre-firing. That's what dead zoning is. You're peeking for like a millisecond. And again, whenever you're super pressured, you want to try to TP out towards these areas, take cover and stall off more. If you're playing this area, then you get TP towards elbow or back here. This one's a bit harder to do though. Yeah, I don't think you can do that. Just TP towards elbow if you're playing this section. It's really the only place you can run away towards. Or you could TP behind Gen 2 if you're like right side safe. For post plant type of smokes, there's two smokes you could rely on. You could still do like the normal smokes on A though for the post plant, but this is like more earlier in the round, so these other two smokes are once they already push past those spaces and it's like late towards the bomb ticking down. And the best one is you one way the bomb right here if you're still alive. And this is really good if once you run away towards elbow or over there, because they really can't do anything with that. If you're playing towards that spot, you want to make the one way be all the way in the corner right there. That way they can't see as much as possible. If you're playing elbow, then you want the smoke to be right in the middle. You want to make sure these smokes drop onto the gen, so not the one where it connects, because if you connect it, then it becomes too low. And they could actually kind of full hide inside the smoke. So it's a bit harder to get a free kill. So this is a bit risky, but this actually works more commonly, surprisingly. And if you want to hard execute onto site, then you could route towards the right side, and you want to TP onto that corner to catch these players off guard. And again, you want to kind of time it where your left players also crunch with you. It's best paired with veto, like a neon stun, breach flash, etc. And it works surprisingly well. You don't really want to stay up here for the post plant though, because your whole plan is to play B main again. Unless if you push towards CT, and you do that one way. It's also sometimes common for two players to push market when you're trying to plant the bomb, or during post plant to re-clear. But as the Omen, you want to be trying to stay alive as long as possible for the B post plant, so you're just trying to fall back towards B main. Except again if you're towards CT. Now some final tips, Ethan, is whenever you're in a 1v1, make sure if you got any util like a TP or blind, just TP literally anywhere. And if you got your blind for 1v1, don't hold on to it. Just blind them. And because I know this a lot, you don't take fights when you have that blind. You just usually dry swing without blinding them. Even with TPs, again, you can fake TP. I keep failing. You can fake TP. You should do it towards like the way you're gonna jump towards. I keep failing this. You're definitely better than me, but you get what I mean. Just TP literally anywhere. You jump peek for info with the TP, or you can fake TP. Again, you got your blind. Don't hold on to it for 1v1s. You want to just pop that thing if you have your blind, and then they're too much in the open for you to abuse. If they're blinded too, you could TP behind them. You get a cool TikTok clip. But yeah, that's all I have from analysis on attack. So that's it.